I'm Tanya Salazar. I'm a mental health therapist with the special education department here in Twin Rivers.
And I'm Kathleen McCarthy. I'm the other mental health therapist in the special ed department with Twin Rivers. Thank you for joining us.
And we're going to allow our breakout room facilitators to introduce themselves. They were gracious enough to come tonight to help us with some Q&A at the end of the session that's specific to elementary versus secondary grades.
Hello, good evening. My name is Kamal Joel, and I am the district social emotional counselor.
Good evening, I'm Simone Brown, and I am a school counselor at Grant High School.
Hello, my name is Nicole Brogdon, and I am the school counselor at FC Joyce Elementary School.
And hello, my name is Dawn Holly. I'm the school counselor at Northwood Elementary School.
And we're grateful for all of you being here tonight. Since Kathleen and I work at the district office and we circulate among schools, we don't get to meet a lot of parents, except for the parents of the students that we directly serve. So we wanted to make sure that you had access to on-site counselors within this session if you had specific questions about who and how to access resources at your school sites. So we'll go ahead and go over the agenda. So what we just wanted to talk in general about what is mental health and what is wellness, what does it all mean, and address some of the things that are challenging our emotional and mental health these days. Pandemic fatigue, first of all. Thank goodness things are starting to open up a bit, and we're not seeing quite as much impact, but we're still kind of all reeling from the impact of having been, wearing masks and getting vaccinated and doing the distance learning and having been, at home for work for a long time. And understanding what kind of challenges come up with mental health so that we can both recognize signs and symptoms and address those using strategies, which we'll go over, and learn how to eliminate the stigma and shame. There's nothing, we all are human, and we have good days and bad days. And when we are struggling with something really heavy, it's really important that we reach out to our support systems that we have in place to address some of those things. So we're going to talk to you guys also at the end about how to access resources both in the community and at your school sites for yourselves and for your children. And then we'll have a breakout period where we're going to break out into elementary and secondary, and we'll be able to talk. You guys can bring up whatever is coming up for you, either as a question or comments. We're hoping that you'll be able to share some things that you do as a family to maintain your emotional and mental wellness. So with that, we're going to do a quick check-in with ourselves. So if you can get comfortable wherever you're sitting, we just recognize that it's evening time. It's a lot of people's dinner time. Things are a little busy in our homes. We've got, for example, my son's in the living room doing homework right now. I've got two dogs that were barking just a few minutes ago. The doorbell rang. Everybody's got stuff going on. So we really appreciate you taking this time out for yourselves tonight, for your own self-care. And so in spirit of self-care, I just want you to get comfortable. If you'd like, you can close your eyes. You can put your hand over your heart if you so choose. Sometimes doing that is a way to kind of connect with ourselves, our heart center, also our breathing. And just be here in this moment right now. And notice your physical body. If your feet are touching the ground, kind of ground your feet into the floor under you. Notice if you can feel any tension showing up, any tightness, any soreness. And on the flip side, if you notice that any parts of you are feeling particularly relaxed, just notice how you're doing in your physical body. What's your energy level like? Are you high energy right now, medium? Are you ready to collapse, low energy? Just notice that. What thoughts are coming up in this moment as you're sitting here? And just notice whatever those thoughts may be. We're not trying to judge our thoughts. It's really interesting when we get quiet, what thoughts pop up, and just noticing them without giving them any judgments attached. Are they positive? Are they negative? Whatever they are, they're your thoughts. Which leads us to emotions, because oftentimes we have a thought and then it triggers an emotion. So if you can tell right now in this moment what emotions you're feeling. Are they positive or negative? Are they intense or light? Pleasant or unpleasant? Or somewhere in between? And finally, this is where I do like to put my hand over my heart. Check in with your spirit. How is your connection to yourself right now? To your values, to who you are authentically? How's your connection to your community, including those immediately around you, your loved ones, your family? And we're going to take one deep breath in. And as we blow it out, we're going to sigh. Drop our shoulders. And just notice how we're feeling now after checking in with ourselves for 60 seconds. And the purpose of doing that is just to stop and be aware in this moment, in the present, of what's going on for us so that we are more attuned to ourselves, which will allow us to be more attuned to our children. All right. So we can move on to the next slide. And this slide was created when we were in the midst of Omicron, when that was kind of blowing up and there was a lot of anxiety and fear around that. And we're bombarded every day with so much information and input in the media, in the news, radio, among people around us. And most of what makes it to the top of the news hour is not good news. It's meant to stir us up. It's meant to create uncertainty and anxiety so that we keep drawing our attention to it. And we all have lots to be concerned about these days, not the least of which is COVID. Right now, we've got a war going on the other side of the world. We've got, local things happening here in Sacramento that aren't so much fun. And we're all on information overload. And that trickles down to our kids. So they're just as tuned in to, for example, the ones that have smartphones are tuned into what's going on in social media all the time. Even the ones that don't, they're hearing it from adults, they're hearing it at school. And the kids don't have the benefit of fully developed frontal lobes to be able to integrate it all and not experience some underlying emotions, some anxiety, possibly depression. And for some children, that can be pretty overwhelming and even sometimes debilitating. Next slide. And we're all pretty darn tired of this pandemic. And for a lot of us, it's taken a toll. I don't know about you guys, but I went through quite a period in the very beginning of just being depressed about being stuck at home. And then I was just sick and tired of my glasses fogging up, wearing a mask. And, you know, the schools have been hit very, very hard this year, as you know, with both kids and staff being out, which has impacted the learning. And that is taking a toll on staff as well as families. So just a reminder that it is okay not to be okay. And having a positive mindset is a good coping skill, as long as we also acknowledge that we and have an outlet for pain and turmoil. Just pretending everything's okay doesn't necessarily cut it. We've got to be able to express what's going on with us, because what we don't express outwardly will increase. If we pretend emotional pain does not exist, it sends a message to our brain that the emotion is somehow bad or dangerous. And being scared or being angry is not inherently dangerous. It's a normal human emotion. And if we push it down, we're more likely to overreact or underreact to stressors, which leads to physical and emotional fatigue, and even sometimes illness. So part of wellness is knowing that stress is inevitable. Avoiding our emotionality invalidates our experience and often leads to greater stress. So the best way to deal with negative emotions is to let yourself feel them and let them pass, not push them under the rug. The only way out from a negative emotion is to feel it and work through it. And I'm going to pass the baton to Kathleen.
Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to talk about mental health and then get into some strategies and resources. Let's start with a definition. Next slide. So mental health includes our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being, and it affects how we think and how we feel and how we act. And it also helps determine how we handle our stress, how we relate to others, and how we make decisions. And mental health affects us at all stages of our life, through childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. And depending on what's happening at pivotal points of child development can really affect development as well, depending upon one's mental health and resilience. Next slide, please. So mental health occurs on a continuum, just like stress occurs on a continuum, just like a medical condition or intense emotions. So if you look at stage one, when the healthy side of the scale, you may experience some mild symptoms or warning signs or a sense that something just doesn't feel right. But for the most part, you can take things in stride, and you can handle little bits of stress, keeping things in moderation, utilizing your support system, and that keeps you balanced. Stage two is when symptoms increase in frequency and severity, and they start to interfere with your life activities. So school and work performance might become more difficult. You might start being overwhelmed by feelings such as sadness or irritability. You might have trouble sleeping or have muscle tension. It might decrease your social activity and your motivation. And so at this stage, it's really important to pay attention to your reactions and how you respond to stressors in your life, and to take breaks and to seek support, and recognize your limits. You know, it's important to not always have that Superman and Superwoman cap on. We all need to have self-care. And then stage 3, symptoms continue to increase in severity, and a person may feel as though they're losing control over their life. And the symptoms can cause a serious disruption in their life activities and their responsibilities. And so they might be dealing with more intense feelings such as hopelessness or pervasive anger or sadness. It's getting more difficult to perform your daily activities, and you may start to see yourself withdrawing socially. And this is when you really need to start paying attention to those warning signs and ask for help, and to really focus on your self-care as a priority. I know that as parents, you put everyone else's needs first before you meet your own, and you really need to do it the opposite way, because when you're depleted, you have nothing else to give. And that's when we tend to react to situations in our life rather than having the choice to respond to them more peacefully. And then we move into stage 4, and that's moving into a mental health disorder where symptoms are so extreme and persistent that they jeopardize one's life. So prolonged impairment often results in developing other health conditions and crisis situations if left untreated. Next slide, please. So as Tanya mentioned earlier, stress is a normal, inevitable part of life, and we can't avoid it completely. So we need to understand mental health challenges that, and they may differ from one person to another, but it's anything that disrupts a person's thinking, feeling, mood, or ability to relate to others and to function in our daily life. So, but we can't avoid stressors, but we can make choices to reduce the causes of stress in our life, or adjust our responses to it. Some of you may have heard the analogy of we can't control the waves, but we can learn how to surf. So that's kind of a metaphor of living and accepting that, you know, life has its ups and downs, and you just, to the best of your ability, try to go with the flow. And we'll be discussing healthy ways to address stress in some upcoming slides. So next slide, please. Okay, so it's really important that we're aware of mental health issues because it's very pervasive and it's very common. 1 out of 5 people have a mental health disorder. That probably is not an accurate count right now after we have gone through a global pandemic. Addressing mental health needs in school is also critically important because 1 in 5 children have a diagnosable emotional, behavioral, or mental health condition. And 1 out of 10 young people have a mental health challenge that is severe enough to impair how they function at home or at school or in the community. And mental health problems are very common. We're all affected to some degree, and we're truly in this together. And so we need to stop the stigma and realize that it's okay to not be okay. We are human and we are going to go through difficult times. And we need to be there to support each other through those times. A few more statistics: 50% of people with a mental health disorder start to experience symptoms by age 14. So it's really important that we start educating our families and our kids young to know what the signs and symptoms are. Unfortunately, only 20% will ever seek treatment, and that's largely due because of the stigma that they're going to be judged or discriminated. The median age for the onset of anxiety disorders is 6 years old. Anxiety is probably the most common mental health condition in elementary school, that and depression. And then when you get into high school, the depression actually multiplies 3 times as much. There was a study that screened 11 to 18-year-olds back in March of 2020 during the onset of the pandemic, and they were screened for potential mental health issues. 83% screened positive for anxiety and 91% screened positive for depression. And, you know, those are really high numbers. We can't not see these numbers. It's in our schools, it's in our communities, it's in our families, and we have to be aware of it and educate others that it is okay and we're going to be okay and there is treatment. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in adolescence. And that was before it was between the ages of 15 and 24, but since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, the age range is actually lowered to 10 years of age. So this is something that we can't afford not to talk about. Next slide, please. So listed here is a bunch of signs and symptoms of potential mental health issues. So again, the inability to cope, having trouble relating to others, becoming more dependent on substances, having more intense feelings or worries or fears, or having low energy and extreme moods shifts, suicidal thinking, and also some of these signs and symptoms can appear as physical problems, so headaches or stomach pain or unexplained aches and pains. There's a lot of overlap with these symptoms. At another time, we could break the symptoms down according to disorders, such as like what to look for specifically in anxiety versus phobias or depression. But the key is to look for any significant changes that were not there before. So if your child all of a sudden has changes in their eating patterns or their sleep patterns, that's something to look at. But you also have to pay attention to their developmental age, because a child that or a teenager that starts spending more time in their room or wanting to be with their friends, and that's not necessarily isolating themselves. Isolation would be if they suddenly stop having contact with their friends and they lose interest in their friends and the activities that they previously enjoyed. So it's up to all of us to know the signs and symptoms so that they can be caught early and treated, because as stated earlier, we're seeing it as young as 6-year-olds. So not only are mental health conditions common, but they're also treatable. And there's a wide range of treatment options, and the results can be life-changing. Next slide, please. So how do we eliminate stigma and shame? Well, as noted before, 50% of people don't receive help for their mental health. And it could be due to concerns about being treated differently, because stigma often comes from a lack of understanding or fear. So it's important that we talk openly about the importance of mental and emotional health, because it's just as important as our physical health. And all of us need a support system. We all depend on others to boost our resilience. Research shows that knowing or having contact with someone with a mental health condition is one of the very best ways to reduce stigma. Individuals speaking out and sharing their stories can have a very positive impact. And when we know someone that has a similar disorder or a condition, it can become less scary and more real and relatable. So there's lots of teams that will go online and they'll be looking at famous people with disorders because they're inspired by the authenticity of them speaking out. And we have a wonderful resource called NAMI, and they have people will come out to the schools and tell their stories and help eliminate stigma by answering the questions and educating ourselves and our children about mental wellness and the barriers to it. So it's important to know the facts, to challenge the myths and stereotypes, and not to get hung up on labels. We are not our diagnosis, whether that be a diagnosis of diabetes or high blood pressure or depression. We are so much more complex than that, and we are made up of so many different parts than to become to identify too much with a label. Okay, I am going to pass the baton back to Tanya, and we're going to be talking more about some strategies.
So if you wouldn't mind, Heriberto, clicking on the link at the top of the slide. This is the recommendations from the CDC at the start of the pandemic, just about how to maintain, let's see. Oh, here we go. If you can scroll down a little bit further. Okay, so just what can you do? Recognizing and addressing fear, stress, and behavior changes. So these are the things we can do to just look for any changes in our children and in our spouses and ourselves. Teaching and reinforcing everyday preventative actions, that's more specific to COVID, but preventing mental health issues is also really important. And we are going to give you a variety of strategies to keep a positive mindset for yourselves and your children. Stay healthy and stay socially connected. So if you would like, there's, I just wanted to include that slide so that if you had an interest, you can look that up yourself. And there's quite a lot of resources on the CDC website for families. Next slide. And then this is a short video on parenting that specifically addresses setting up family routines. So we're going to just watch that really quickly.
Okay, so that's what happens in the morning.
Yes, what happens
in the evening?
It's kind of like
I'm not sure. Can you hear the
When
sound?
you hear the word routine, you might think boring.
Okay.
But routines help kids learn good habits for everything from healthy eating to doing homework. To set up a routine, my family made a schedule together. Some things, like eating breakfast and brushing teeth, we put on the schedule every day. But we also plan for fun things to look forward to, like family game night and a special treat each week.
Very good.
Now, my child knows what to expect each day. Making our schedule was easy, and it's really made life better. We pack lunches after dinner and pick out clothes before bed, so getting off to school the next morning is less hectic. Following a routine at home has been great practice for following a routine at school. Our schedule helps my child feel comfortable and confident. That gives him the freedom to explore the world and learn new things.
And there's nothing boring about that.
So And it's something that sometimes we just kind of forget about, especially when things are really chaotic and we have competing demands, is having those routines. But even though they take a minute to put in place, they're so helpful for reducing our own stress. They definitely help kids feel more secure and safe. And just it increases the structure in your time of your day and in your family. Next slide. And if you could click on, we can go ahead and start with the family meeting book. So this is a resource if you are interested in running family meetings, which are an opportunity generally once a week to get together with everyone in the family, and each person gets to put something on the agenda of the meeting. And that can be, something they write on a piece of paper and stick in a basket whenever they think of it during the week. So here's a sample family meeting agenda. And you can write, this is just a way to keep a record of the things that have come up, and down to the youngest member of your family having say in what's going on. And then as a family, you brainstorm solutions to any problems that might be happening. And it might not be that there is a problem. It might just be that somebody had an idea about a family activity to do or something they wanted to try. So they would bring that forward in the meeting, and everybody gets to have their, make a comment about it. It's also a good opportunity for us to give compliments to each other. Usually, you'd be sitting around the dining room table or in a circle in the living room. So everybody has a chance to share. And you can also, do fun things like have a rubber ball or some other kind of talking piece that is passed from person to person when it's their turn to talk. And we're going to include that in the slides so that when Heriberto, they'll have access to the slides. Yes.
Yeah, they will, and I could
Okay.
send these as attachments as well.
Okay, great. So we won't go into all of the parts of the family meeting. You can research that on your own, but we do have, Heriberto, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the parent project, we had those resources in both English and Spanish, right?
We
need them.
Yeah, we have some of these activities in both English and Spanish as well.
Okay. And then the next, let's see, if you don't mind clicking on the establishing family routines. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just taking a minute.
My Wi-Fi is a little slower.
Oh, that's okay. So this is just an article out of Australia on how and why family routines work and how you might implement them at each stage of your children's lives, starting from infancy all the way up to, say, your kids are graduated from high school but still living at home. These are all, all age groups. If you have a chance to look over this article, they have different strategies for different age groups and including the kids in the decision-making around the routines. And so that there is buy-in and a sense of ownership. So we're going to include that in the resources. Next slide. And I'm going to pass the baton back to Kathleen.
Okay, so we're going to go over just a few strategies, additional strategies, but if you click on the yes, right there's an emotional wellness checklist. And emotional wellness is the ability to successfully handle, if you can, the printer friendly version, the PDF, just up a little bit further. If you can click on that PDF, yeah. So emotional wellness or mental wellness is the ability to successfully handle life stresses and to adapt to change and difficult times. And this is a checklist that gives a few ideas of how to preserve your mental wellness and your resilience, your ability to bounce back. And the first one is to brighten your outlook. So fostering resilience is something that we can practice on a daily basis by forgiving ourselves and practicing gratitude and taking time to focus on the positives. Reducing stress by getting enough sleep and watching our nutrition and staying active and having a strong support system. Sleep is very important. It affects both our mental and physical health, and it's vital to our well-being. So having a routine or a sleep hygiene schedule of getting up and going to bed at the same time every day, and having a quiet, dark space, and limiting the use of electronics before bed. If you could scroll down, please, to page 2. So mindfulness practices are especially useful with your emotional wellness. And by being mindful, it's similar to the practice that Tanya led us through at the beginning. And it's a practice about being aware of what's happening in the present. So everything that's going inside and everything that's happening around us, and just being aware of it in the present moment, but not being carried away by it, not judging what's coming up for us. Lots of mindful strategies revolve around muscle relaxation and breath work, and just paying attention to your thoughts and your feelings and what's happening to you physically and emotionally. We all have experienced a lot of loss with the pandemic in more ways than one. You know, high school seniors that didn't get the traditional high school experience. We've lost loved ones to complications of COVID. And so it's important that you take care of allowing you the time to grieve your process, and everyone does it in a different way. Children tend to process loss more through acting out because they don't have the words to express what they're going through. So that's one way that you can connect with your school counselors at your site that could help with those issues. And then strengthening social connections and finding links to others can have powerful effects on our health, both emotionally and physically. So it's important to allow time to do the things that we love and do the things that interest us, and taking care of ourselves and asking for help so that we do have that time for self-care. Okay, I have added some next. So these are some mindful apps. They are separated for both children and for teens and adults. These are the ones that are the most popular and the most effective. And the apps specifically are around activities around self-care or coping strategies for anxiety or depression. Lots of mindfulness strategies such as guiding meditations for improved sleep or relaxation, activities to build resilience and to help children understand their feelings, and how to combat negative thoughts. So you might want to check into some of those apps that you can just download right onto your phone. The next slide. So this is another app. It's called the Manifest Positive Affirmations. And I think it's really important to have healthy mantras to keep us grounded and to help us not get to run away with our thoughts and our emotions. And so if you look under each category, there are some great mantras that if you just look through them, I'm sure there will be one or two of them that really speaks to you. And that would be a good replacement thought for those negative thoughts that keep running through our minds. And because what we think about expands, so it's really important that we clean up the chatter in our head. Because addressing anxiety and depression starts with becoming aware of our thoughts and reframing them into more reasonable and rational, defendable thoughts that promote a sense of resiliency and hope. So I just want you to take it through a few seconds to just look at the different positive affirmations or mantras that you can commit to saying to yourself on a daily basis.
And video we don't have time to watch, but I just wanted to include it, and that is something that then you're welcome to go back in and look at later. It's just about there you go. It's about breathing mindfully, but while moving your body. A lot of us can't sit still very well. Some of us are a little ADHD and need to be moving. So that was why that video was included. And then just in the same spirit as we were talking about with family meetings and family routines, it doesn't all have to be regimented. Make time in the schedule for family fun. You can do a game night. My kids and I used to do, we used to have a dance video thing on the TV, and we would just have little living room dance parties, or make a fort, or play 20 questions, whatever it is, just so that you have those moments with your family. Play is really, really, really important, not just for kids, but for adults. It renews us. It gives us a sense of creativity and connection. And it actually, healthy playtime as kids leads to healthy adulthood. It's necessary for brain development. In fact, they're finding now that there's research that the time on the playground is as important as the time in the classroom. But it doesn't end when we grow up, and adults need recess too. And so there's a Dr. Stuart Brown from the National Institute for Play who says that, that the question is why? Why do we need to play? Because it is, we need to define what that is. It's actually something done for its own sake. It's voluntary, pleasurable, offers a sense of engagement, and it takes you out of time. It puts you in the present moment. And that is a way, it's a way for us to cultivate moments of joy with our families, because at the end of the day and at the end of our lives, the things we remember are the moments. And I'm hopeful that all of us are being more mindful of cultivating positive moments and moments of joy with our families than negative ones. The purpose is connection, creating and solidifying those positive relationship bonds. And I think what we'll do, since we're already at 6:46, is we can go over the mental health resources in the breakout rooms, because what we're going to be asking our facilitators from our school sites to do is help us help you guys navigate what's out there through our district resources as well as in the community.